What's up, guys? Welcome back to this new What If Deku was in SAO Part 1. Now, before I jump into this What If, I just want to say go check out in the description down below. There will be my joint channel. I uploaded my first vid there about 2 days ago. And it's going to be a review on the anime card fight Vanguard. So if you guys want to go check that out, go click down the link in the description. While you're over there, go ahead and click that other link as well. It's for my gaming channel. I post gaming content up there, and this Saturday, at 1:30, I'll be doing Among Us. So if you guys want to be a part of that, go click the first link, which is a link to my Discord. You can go DM me over there on Discord, tell me you want to be a part of it. Now, speaking of Discord, I want to go ahead and go shout out the people who joined. Rookie FM, Grey Wolf 188, Blade, Sakaru Ususki, I don't know how to say the first part, I'm sorry, Matthew62, Godstride R. Thank you all for joining the Discord, and if you want to get shout out as well, go ahead and go join the Discord down in the link description down below. Now, so, I'm going to jump straight into this What If, and this is What If Deku was in SAO. Part 1. Oh yeah, one more thing. So any artists out there, so if you guys would like to, draw artwork for Izuku in the center, that would be cool. Maybe I might make it a challenge. Go ahead and draw artwork for Izuku, what you think he would look like in SAO, and post it over on the chat in the art part of my Discord, and the person who I find has the best looking one, I'll choose them, and they'll replace Izuku. Their artwork will replace Izuku in the center. So now let's jump straight into this What If. It has been 2 years since that day, the day Izuku talked to All Might, and All Might told him that he couldn't be a hero because he didn't have a quirk. Ever since then, Izuku had gone into, a thing called VR. Then again, he was only as much into as much as he could actually afford to pay for it. Then again, it was enough that he was able to buy the newest headset released by a company. The headset was called the Nerve Gear, and of course Izuku ended up waiting in line for its biggest and grandest game that he was excited for. He found it easier to escape into the world of virtual reality rather than having to live through the pain of being harassed in real life. Izuku eventually, after some time, started to like VR better than he did real life. Came to the point where his mother, kind of just took it for what it was. She understood that Izuku needed this so that he could work through his innermost issues, and because of that, she was okay with it. It never really harmed her or anyone else in the family, so she didn't mind if Izuku was able to get the mental help he needed through VR. But that was all about to change. Izuku had picked up the newest game for the console. This game being titled Sword Art Online. It was a game that Izuku, hadn't even played at all. He was very excited for it though, nonetheless. He had stayed up very late the prior night to even get it. And now that he got it, he instantaneously logged on after running to his room. Izuku woke up in what seemed to be a central town. He found out this town was called the Town of the Beginnings, and he thought it was pretty cool. He ended up running around, checking out the area and seeing that it looked pretty beautiful. The landscapes were amazing, and everything else just looked as beautiful as it did. It didn't shock Izuku how beautiful the fiends looked. It actually made him feel quite proud to look at them. He knew the console had sold out pretty quickly after its release, and he was still quite happy that he was able to actually get his hands on a copy. Izuku ended up choosing just a simple sword and shield. He ended up walking around. He left the outskirts of Town of Beginnings and started training. The game was supposedly an MMORPG, which Izuku found to be really cool. He ended up seeing this guy have trouble fighting a boar and decided to attempt to help him with the fight, even though both of them got their butts kicked. The man he was trying to my bad, guys. The man he was trying to assist had red hair and was relatively well-toned. Then again, Izuku knew that was most likely just his avatar, not how he looked in real life. Izuku had based his looks on the game off of his real-life appearance. He really didn't like messing around in the character menus and just wanted to jump straight in. So there was no change in between his regular appearance and his avatar one. He never really found a reason to. The man introduced himself after they both got beat up by the boar. His name was apparently Klein. Izuku said hi and said that his name was Deku, which is what he named himself inside the game. Klein thought this was kind of weird and said, "So why did you name yourself Deku? That just means useless." And Izuku explained that he wanted to make the word Deku, rather than seeming as an insult, to be something that was meant to be held in high regards, which Klein understood. He then asked if Izuku had a quirk, and Izuku responded no, he was quirkless. Klein laughed and said, "Well, don't worry, I'm in the same boat as you, buddy," as he slapped Izuku on the back, which Izuku laughed about too. He had met a couple other people online that were all quirkless as well, so it really didn't make him feel nearly as bad when he found out Clyde was quirkless. It actually made him quite more easier and simpler to approach and talk to. Izuku then ended up trying to fight the boar again, using his shield to block the boar's first attack and then taking his sword to quickly try to slice at the bull. The boar deflected the attack though, causing Izuku to get sent backwards slightly. This really started to annoy Izuku when suddenly a man with long black hair came up behind them. He asked if they needed help, and Izuku said, "Yeah, this boar was way harder to fight than he had anticipated, especially to fight it without any prior knowledge about the game." The man just said, "Well, you're not using sword skills," which Izuku was very confused about. The man then said that he should probably try to use sword skills. He should center his body weight, bring his sword back, saying how he was using a sword and shield, and twist it 90 degrees. Hold it there for a few seconds until the blade glowed, and then let his body just go out through the motions. This confused Izuku very highly, but he did as he was told. He stood there, steadfast, with his sword being, quite literally prepared. He took in a deep breath as the sword began to glow, a weird color representing a kind of green. Izuku saw this as a slight smile smirked on his face, as he quickly launched forward towards the boar. Izuku's blade then stabbed the boar and made a twisting motion, causing it to twist the insides of the boar. As the boar screeched, it then faded to red pixels, and Izuku had just killed it. Klein was super impressed. He said, "Wow, Deku, that was amazing." Deku scratched the back of his head and he was like, "Oh, really? I didn't think it was that cool." And then Klein said, me next," as they went on to the next boar. Kirito stayed around. Well, they ended up finding out that the boy's name was Kirito. He stayed around as they continued doing this for a couple of hours. Eventually, Izuku ended up continually attacking. He found out that it was pretty easy to just do that. He's also kind of shocked about it too. It surprised him on how easy everything seemed. Now that he knew what to do, everything else seemed to come naturally. Almost like it was a second motion to him. Izuku was pretty happy about that, as he was hoping that he could have some fun. Eventually, they all sat on top of the hill that they were on. Klein then said that he had to log out, and that he would log back on later on. He was going to have some buddies come over. They were going to eat food. He had a pizza coming, and that he had to log off for that, and that his pals were going to log on later, and that they should meet up again if they see each other again. Izuku and Kirito both waved off to Klein, as Kirito then also said that he had to also log off. He knew that he had his own agenda to do, and decided that he should probably go get something to eat as well. Which also made Deku end up agreeing in the same manner to both the other two of his companions. Just so you know, Izuku is 16 in this story, so he's the same age as Kirito, and I'm pretty sure Klein's just a little bit older than Kirito. But they're all around the same age. Suddenly, Klein looked shocked, and he said, "I think there's a glitch," which confused Kirito as he asked Klein what was wrong. Klein then stated that there was no logout button. This confused both Kirito and Izuku as they both checked their own menus to see if Klein was just joking around. They both noticed that Klein was being actually very truthful. There was no logout button. Izuku started to slightly freak out a little bit. And then Deku then asked, "Is this a glitch?" Which Kirito responded saying, "No, most likely it's not. It's probably game intended. Maybe there's like a certain logout point where we can only log out there." This confused Izuku even more, thinking that certain logout points were kind of insane. Eventually, the bell started to ring over at this town of beginnings, and Izuku was able to hear it, and same with Klein and Kirito. Izuku said, "That's the bell," when they were all enveloped in this blue light that sent them careening and teleported over to the town of beginnings. Izuku opened his eyes, and he was in shock and fear. Everyone was there, and it seemed like the entire thing was under some sort of magical spell, thinking that this was an event to close off the opening of the game and to unlock the log out buttons. At least that's what Izuku thought. Eventually, the man spoke that was there. He talked about how that what they saw was not fake, and that was an intended thing, SAO was a game that they couldn't leave until they had already, well, beaten it. This confused Izuku greatly. Being the game? What is he talking about? He then stated something about microwaves inside the helmets and how they can kill the person. If they die in the game, you die in real life? What is this? Izuku was starting to slightly freak out. He then stated that everyone should look into their inventories. There'll be an item. It's a mirror. And everyone did as they were instructed, not wanting to upset the man that literally just told them, hey, there's a good chance you're gonna die. So they all did as they were told. Izuku pulled out the mirror and a white flash shined over everyone. Izuku shouted for Kirito as well as Klein. Both these persons respond, but they look different. Klein looked a little bit different, not too much different from his avatar, while Kirito had almost a mildly massive difference appearance. It almost looked like he was, well, for without a lack of a better word, a different person. Kirito and Klein realized that Izuku had a confused and shocked expression on their face. On his face, realizing that there must be something off. Kirito and Klein both looked at their own personal avatars and saw that they had reverted to how they looked like in the real world. Kirito quickly realizing that that must have been what the entire calculation thing was for. Because not only did they do that, it also scanned their face. Meaning that that's probably when it happened. And Kirito and Klein were kind of confused on why Izuku didn't really change his look, and Izuku just explained that he really didn't think it was a necessary thing to change his look. He didn't want to hide behind a fake mask, he wanted to be himself. Which Klein and Kirito both understood, of course. You know, also kind of feeling like a pot shot at them, but they both understood. Klein then was very, very confused and wondering where his friends were. They were meant to log on, and he also hoped that they hadn't logged on, just for the pure fact that he didn't want them to be in this kind of danger, but knew if they did log on, then he should be very careful in looking out for them. This is when Kirito said something. I know some great, excellent training XP spots. Everyone's going to go ahead and train. We need to go get training. Klein went against that, which confused Izuku slightly. Izuku decided to go with Kirito, while Klein said he had to stay back to help look for his friends, which Izuku understood, knowing that friends were a very important thing. He then told Klein goodbye and hoped that Klein had a safe trip, while Klein responded the same to Izuku. Izuku and Kirito quickly dashed out of the city and started to prepare training. He knew that training was going to be really rough, but he didn't have time to complain. Him and Kirito needed to train. They needed to become better, stronger. He knew that most people here would most likely end up defeating them if it went south. Especially because if you die here, you die in real life. That meant that most likely the people here would be able to kill either him or Kirito over resources, so he knew he had to go. Him and Kirito started training constantly, becoming stronger and stronger. They eventually got to a strong enough point. Izuku ended up finding out that Kirito was actually a beta tester and that he had known some of the information He had also helped writing a book that was given to most players about XP grinding spots and other things, of course. Kirito understood why. Not Kirito. Izuku understood why Kirito wanted to keep that a relative secret. It made sense that if he exposed it too much, it could come into a serious issue. People will probably start to feel negatively towards Izuku. Towards Izuku, towards Kirito. So Izuku could understand why Kirito was a little bit hesitant at first. Eventually, Kirito and Izuku both ended up becoming pretty strong. They had trained and prepared, and there was a meeting that was going on the first floor to defeat the boss. It had been a little while since the last time they had done it, so they went there. They ended up sitting down in the Pantheon and prepared themselves for what was going to happen. Kirito and Izuku both were relatively calm about it, both of them being way stronger than most of the people there. The meeting discussed things that were inside the guidebook, about the boss and everything. As well as there was a little bit of a hiccup with a guy mentioning how the beta testers, if there were any among them, should really just not get any of the loot because they were beta testers. They have enough loot. Which almost caused Izuku to instantaneously stand up and defend because he knew Kirito was a beta tester. Kirito, thankfully, caused Izuku to stop. He knew that Izuku really shouldn't defend him. It would make Izuku a prime target, which would only bring more attraction towards him and Izuku, which Kirito did not want. Izuku ended up calming down and settling down. Of course, he was still a little bit annoyed by the entire situation at hand. That man just rattling on, insulting people like it was nothing. Luckily, Izuku wasn't the one who had to even step in. Eventually, a man walked out into the center of the Pantheon and talked to everyone, saying that they should all get into a party, and that beta testers had even created a book specifically designed to help them. This caused the other man to shut up relatively easily as they went back on with the meeting. He then stated that everyone should form a party, which Izuku already knows. Izuku and Kirito ended up forming a party, of course. He then ended up noticing that there was a girl off a little ways from him and Kirito, or a person who didn't seem to be in a group. Izuku invited them to join, learning that their name was Asuna. Of course, Kirito really didn't mind having a third person, seeing how he knew that him and Izuku's levels were way higher than what was actually probably needed for this simple boss fight. Of course, after that, Izuku and Kirito both rented a room in an inn. That's what they usually tended to do. They really didn't actually tend to, go big on their spendings, mainly because they found it annoying. They even but they even asked the girl if she wanted to come join them. The person, if it wanted to come join them. It replied no, and that it had a room of its own, which Izuku and Kirito just shrugged, understanding that they had barely talked to the person and knowing that it was kind of weird that they had just recommended to sleep in the same room. Izuku and Kirito laid down in a room and discussed things about the plan tomorrow. Izuku stated that the raid boss should be relatively easy. As long as nothing was changed, there should be no issues, which Izuku said okay to, him understanding that him and Kirito might even be able to just defeat the raid boss solo. Worst comes to worst. which Kirito laughed and said, defeating the raid boss solo would be kind of fun, but gotta remember we have a teammate as well. We can't have that third person getting in danger just because we want to have some fun. Which Izuku kind of laughed and agreed with. Izuku closed his eyes as he gently drifted off to sleep. That's where I'm going to leave it off, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button. And if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.